met them and they became my friends. So I think
I so agree. I love it. Hi there. No worries. So I was just giving an intro to everyone about why we are so excited to talk about motivation today. But now that Jordan is here, let's get started. I'm Laura DiFrancesco. I'm CEO of Dean Street Law and founder of Flourish Co-working Space. We scaled our business from zero, self-funded, to a team of 8 in just a few months, and we are so excited to be working on the launch of Flourish right now. Jordan, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I am the founder of Macro Kitchen, a meal planning app, and of Identipop, a creative product development agency.
And this week we're talking all about motivation. I'm so excited to talk with you about this. I think it's something that Jordan and I share a huge passion for. And then every week we talk about what's brewing, what we're drinking, what's something exciting that happened last week, what's something exciting happening this week, and then what we're reading, as always, since we're both bookworms.
So I am drinking this is just kind of coffee concentrate and this great stuff called Malibu milk. And I've also added in, it's from Laird's Superfood, it's called Performance Mushrooms. So if you're a fan of Four Sigmatic or other brands, this is a really great one. You can go on their site and it'll tell you all of the, I don't know if it would be species or strains, I don't know what they call it, for mushrooms.
Wait, can you tell me that again? Hold on, I want to write it down.
It's by Laird's Superfoods, and it's called Performance Mushrooms.
Awesome. I love Four Sigmatic, so that's perfect. And
yeah.
Tell us the rest.
And then for last week, I think it was really kind of more setting goals for the coming year and just kind of getting more clear with myself and what I wanted to do. And then this week, there have been kind of a lot of things that have come up recently that are really exciting. And one of them I'll announce next week, but it's kind of feeding into this path that I've kind of had a little bit of issues with over the years, just kind of my nonlinear path. And finally, it's just coming together, and there have been people who've been recognizing it, so I'm really thrilled about that. So this week has been just finishing up creative work and digging into those a little bit. And then my reading has gone by the wayside. As much of a bookworm as I am, I've been doing a lot of research online, reading a lot of blogs too. So my reading hasn't been as traditional, but it's been helping, just kind of prepare potentially for some of these things. So
that's good. Hey, you're learning in all different aspects.
Yeah.
And for me this week, I am just drinking water because I'm perpetually dehydrated. So a challenge of mine is to just drink water. So that's just my focus right now in our Cadillac and Girl Boss cans, or our Cadillac and Girl Boss water bottles that they gave us, which are really nice. And then last week was such an exciting week. I was featured on my first ever podcast. It is Instant Impact with Elise Archer. I've linked that in my bio if you want to go check it out. Such an exciting discussion about what it's like to prepare to leave your 9 to 5 and what to do before you leave your 9 to 5. And then this week, I am so excited. I'm not only podcasting with our Tea and Toast podcast, but I'm also recording today with Jessica Zwig from the Simply Be podcast, and I'm really excited to talk about personal branding with her. And then currently I'm reading Essentialism by Greg McKeown and Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. Both of those are things that I'm working really hard on decluttering my life digitally and otherwise so that I can create more space. So speaking of creating more space, I think that goes in tandem with motivation, our topic for today. And our first question from Lisa at Lisa DeFran is, what motivates you? And Jordan, why don't you start us off?
So I know we're going to kind of go back and forth between a few things and sharing some points, but I think coming first, instead of going to more like general, just kind of my work and my general like personal life, I think I'm really motivated by doing creative things, bringing things to life. So any activity that does that for me makes me more motivated. So I try to either frame my activities or schedule in activities that allow me to do that so that I can bring more value and feel more motivated in what I do. And then I think the other one we definitely share is wanting to help female entrepreneurs create and thrive. And that's been kind of an overarching goal since I've been in college. I used to work with a lot of underprivileged women and helping them write business plans. It's been part of my business in iGenipop, in helping both underprivileged and also just people who want to grow their businesses and create products. And then some of these opportunities coming in are related to that. And then in the future, whenever I visualize it, I just don't see myself not doing something that helps either education or in my work that helps female entrepreneurs. So having that and having that kind of why you do things really, really helps in determining, what motivates you. So when you have that fire and that why, it kind of puts fuel into the fire when you're doing your daily activities because you see the bigger picture.
I love that. And I so agree. I think a lot of motivation is to me the why, but for me, that's also what I'm motivated to do, right? I think in general, for me, motivation is a energy force. Like you mentioned, it's a fuel. And so it's a flow of energy that flows through you, and creating the right environment to support that, creating space in your life for that energy flow to happen, to dream, to create, to imagine, and then removing the blocks or impediments that stop that flow of energy, for me, is what really drives motivation, and creating those practices that we'll talk about more later that enhances that flow of energy. So for me, motivation is essentially one thing, a flow of energy.
I love that. And sometimes it is really about taking away things more so than adding it sometimes for motivation. It allows it to kind of flow through as opposed to get distracted between things.
Fair's
and I think also and then I have this guy behind me who's like, poor guy, he has a stuffed nose, so he's snorting. Poor thing.
Rocky.
So he's snorting back here chewing on something. So if you hear that, that's not me. And I think another kind of more general just for life is I love this affirmation, which is be an example of what is possible. And I love it because it doesn't define it by money or success or anything else. It's literally just be an example of what is possible. So whatever that means to you.
That feels so good to hear.
Right? Whatever that means to you and what fires you up from that statement is what you should be doing. So I use it in a way to be present, to be intentional with my decisions, from little decisions to larger decisions, to keep that growth mindset and wanting to continue to challenge myself, because if I'm an example of what's possible, even just to myself, I want to be the best example I can be. And then also it reminds me that because I show up, and if I show up with value and with kindness and with inspiration, that I'm able to positively impact the world. So if I can be an example of what is possible, even if it's just an example to one other person or anything, it really it means so much. So that's something that I carry into my daily life as far as an affirmation or something that motivates me in most of the decisions that I do. If I think about that, it motivates me a lot.
That's fantastic. That's something good to repeat to yourself as an affirmation every day. And for me, I really focus on my energy levels and I really focus on my energy levels and when my energy is depleted, because I find if I have too many inputs, if I have too much energy outputs, and I'm out of harmony, then that's really when I lack motivation. So those are some things that I really pay attention to. Like you said, affirmation, meditation, it's really connecting with yourself and making sure that you're staying in tune with where you are, especially energy wise. And our second question comes from Lisa at Lisa D. Fran. What practices help you to create and sustain motivation?
So I think in general, motivation is fleeting. I think there's a quote out there. I need to figure out who it is, but it's basically like motivation's like bathing. It's something you need to probably practice every day or do every day.
Every single day.
Yeah, it's not something that's just, it does happen sometimes that like things come to you and you're motivated and you're excited, but that's not always the case. So I tend to have a lot of issues with this in general too, because I have a hard time processing and doing things unless there's a little bit higher stimulation, which is just how my brain works. But I've learned to lean into that and create these practices to create more of this stimulation and motivation. So as far as for smaller things, I like using, if you want to reference back to our productivity episode, I use the Pomodoro Method. So that's timing, your tasks. So there is it activates that reward center of just getting things done, kind of keeping track of your time as well. And it's motivating to just get through a lot of those cycles of the Pomodoros. And I also changed my mindset about what I'm working on to more problem solving. So it seems more like curious or like a challenge. So it's not just rote going through something. It's just like, oh, how can I do this in a different way? Or how can I solve this issue for a customer or client and think about them too? So there's a little bit more meaning behind it. So it's not just let me check off something from a to-do list. It's I'm making a difference in these, even if it's just little things, like someone is benefiting from it, whether it's me or somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And the Pomodoro Method, which I learned from Jordan, it has helped me tremendously in getting things done. And for me, it's because I believe that motivation is really just your flow of energy and your abundance of energy. It's looking to your pillars of health, and that is sleep, nutrition, hydration, activity, community, and spirituality. Checking in with those pillars of your health, think of them as engines that are firing. You've got a V6 or a V8 engine, and you want to make sure that all of those pieces of the engine are firing, and that way you have an abundance of energy. Those are where you get all of your energy from, particularly nutrition. And so making sure that those are creating a good environment to foster a strong flow of energy.
Yeah, I know when your sister was asking, she was talking about she has a similar problem to me as like going to sleep late and then wanting to also wake up early and just
That's
kind
my
of
problem too.
out of that. I know you're like that too. And I think one of the things that I've learned a lot from you too is having these morning and evening routines. It kind of signals to your brain and to your body to either get your day started or wind it down. And I think they're so important also for your confidence and your trust in yourself. So if you can stick to even just one or two things, just starting out in the morning and at night, you're kind of signaling to yourself that you're creating that boundary and then going to sleep, or motivating yourself and waking up. And keeping that promise to yourself is really motivating. So if you start with those few things in the beginning of the day, like taking your vitamins, drinking a glass of water, whatever it is, journaling, reading the Daily Stoic, whatever it is, if you can commit to those things and get them done, you've already started off on a great foot. So you can carry that momentum into the rest of your day. So you're not starting out feeling behind, you're starting out feeling like you've already accomplished something, even if it's a little smaller. So I would suggest to anybody, if you're having trouble either going to sleep early or getting started during the day, having those are great, and adding in something fun is always good. Like at night, the skincare, and Laura has a great skincare routine. Or
working on it.
I like to put on music and like dance around now, just because it's like really happy and makes you feel present, and it like makes you want to get out of bed, because sometimes meditation doesn't always want to make you get out of bed. You're like, I kind of want to sleep more, or I'll fall asleep during the meditation. I've done that before too. But like getting up and dancing, it's something that you probably can do, you're excited to do. So find stuff that makes you feel good. When you're doing it for some of these routines, it doesn't always have to be, checking off the typical, the vitamins, the water, even though that's great. You can also add in something kind of fun too. So,
Yeah. And I think all of what you're saying is removing blocks, lack of confidence, lack of a stimulating routine. And so my second tip for that would be really to identify, look closely, what's preventing you from being motivated? Is it too long of a drive? Could you work out at home? Is it not having an accountability buddy? Do you find someone? Identify whatever it is that's holding you back from your motivation, your flow of energy, what is stopping you in its tracks, and figuring out how you can address those blocks, whether it is creating an environment that helps you be successful. I have zero will control. So if I was to eat healthy, I can't have cookies and everything in the house. Sure, I can bake them one night for hanging out, but I need to create an environment around myself that supports the thing I want to be motivated to do. And then also, what systems can you create to make it more seamless, to help that energy flow? This for me is putting every single thing into my calendar. I will show you what it looks like to have a really insane but awesome calendar.
We should both take like a screenshot, because you should see mine today. I have everything blocked in, including like downtime. So I totally get that.
It's creating systems. It's making sure that you have these big goals, these big ideas, and you're blocking off time to do them. Like you said, Jordan, you're creating a promise for yourself and you're keeping it, which is really important. And then if it's not something that you are good at doing, delegate it. Find someone who can help you with it and declutter your life to create more space, to create more opportunity for this energy to flow. And a few of these blocks are helped by, removing of these blocks is helped by using different resources. And so, Jordan, what are your resources that you use to fuel your motivation?
I mean, I think for me, it sometimes depends, but I think more tried and true things, I'm sure we'll both say, definitely our podcasts really help, just because there's such an easy access thing to tap into. And for me, I think I'm much less about just the general inspiration or motivation. I think I tend to focus on things where I'm feeling a little bit weaker in my motivation. So I think that's different for different people. That might be, maybe your mindset is a little bit negative and it's dampening your motivation, or maybe it's your systems need to be upgraded a little bit. You need a few life hacks in there to like get you kind of going again, because you have a lot of mundane things happening that you need to either delegate, or you need some advice on fitting into your life, or batching maybe. Maybe it's your why of doing it. But for me personally, I've been looking, I listen to a lot of business podcasts, but then I also listen to a lot of cognitive science ones relating to processing, just because I know in my end, I know I process things a little bit differently. So being able to actually be proactive and listen to people who struggle with similar things, it really helps me, because they have tried and true strategies that maybe not all of them will work for me, but probably a lot of them will, because they'll be relatable. Like the stimulation thing, there's certain things like the Pomodoro Method, or other things that I've learned from podcasts that have helped me, gain that confidence, and even use some of what I feel would be a weakness as a strength. So I think that I think podcasts are always great, and I think you can really kind of get it from wherever. But don't just think it needs to be listening to someone who's great at motivating themselves. It can also be someone sharing a common weakness they have and how maybe they overcame it.
I actually think that's even the best resources, is someone who's not good at something teaching you how to be good at something, because they struggle to persevere through that. And my number one tip, my number one resource is sitting right here with me. She's my accountability buddy. I think that amazing for you if you can give yourself a kick in the butt and say, you need to get to the gym. You need to do Instagram lives each week. Amazing for you if you have that self-discipline. I do not. I need an accountability accountability buddy for everything that's really important to me where there's friction and a lack of motivation. So I had been wanting to do Instagram lives for months and months. And then I pitched the idea to Jordan, and Jordan was all for it, which gives me an accountability buddy. We're both here planning it together each week. We're both here holding each other accountable each week that we're going live. Same with the Tea and Toast podcast. I had been wanting to podcast for over a year now, and I finally pitched it to my sisters who were on board for the idea, and now we have it in our calendar, scheduled with each other every single week to record. And same with, anything you want in life, have an accountability buddy for the gym, but you just need someone who will really show up. You're relying on them. You need to be there for them just as much as they're going to be here for you, and work together to power through any hard weeks.
Well, thank you so much. And I feel the same way, because my second point was tapping into kind of humanness. So whether that's going inward and saying, what am I struggling with, and really analyze it and come from a place of what's my intuition telling me? How am I feeling about something? Because sometimes you'll just get this gut feeling of that it's not particularly motivating, but you need to dig more into and it's not just, could just be something about it. Maybe it's something you can reframe. Maybe it's something you can delegate. Oh, that's okay. But I think it's definitely important to go inward, but then also to have the accountability buddy like you. And same way, I wanted to do Instagram lives, but it's hard to motivate yourself. It's so much better if you can show up with someone, like you said, for the gym, for masterminds that people start to talk about how their business is doing. I was in startup school for Y Combinator, and it was so important that every week we had to talk about our failures and then also just what we were doing each week. And it kind of made us, we wanted to say something good each week.
Yeah, a close-knit group. Absolutely.
Exactly. So I think connecting with my fellow founder friends, just my friends in general, listening to their stories, and then just also getting those people who are your supporters, or Lala Delia said, your expanders, getting both of those in there really help excite you, but then also support you where you're at. So
yes,
I think that community is so important. That's been great for us, even with Girl Boss and everything too. It's so easy to find people who are on the same page.
Mm-hmm. She talked about your expanders, the people who help you reach, who inspire you, who you can walk and see their path that they're walking and figure out what you want to implement. And then also your reinforcers who are there with you in the trenches, who are going to support you, push you on, your accountability buddy, to tell you in the hard weeks that you've got this, you can do this. And sometimes that little reinforcer is what you need in your life. And honestly, if you can't find it in your life, invest in yourself and hire someone to help you. For instance, every week I have calendaring meetings with my personal assistant who goes through, and we take our big ideas and put it into the calendar, create systems, make sure that we have everything that we need. And she works 1 day a week. That's all we need together to get so much done. And then you could also hire a personal trainer or an online personal trainer I've had great experience with. But look at what your blocks are, and if you can't find an accountability buddy, invest in yourself. And like Jordan said, invest in your education. Any little step that you can take every single day to do something. If you don't have the time and energy to just do something yourself, start absorbing and learning, and that's going to get you further along in your journey and prepare you so much for when you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think that we have had an incredible conversation about motivation. We could obviously both go on about it so much longer, but we want to share with you each week tips that you can implement. What's your number one takeaway, Jordan?
I think my number one takeaway is just figure out your why. Just figure out why you're doing this. I think that'll kind of lead you into the future, and that's going to be something that can sustain you for a long period of time, more so than just tactics or practices or resources. It comes from you first. So if you can create and define that why of why am I doing this? What's important to me? How does this add to my future? It's going to make a lot of those smaller steps. You can see kind of where they're leading, and they seem less unimportant. It's more they are just one of the stepping stones to where you want to be. So I think that would be my main tip, is just focusing on that why.
And focus on your energy levels, do an internal assessment every single day on how you're feeling, and create environments that support a high abundance and flow of energy, and move everything that is blocking that energy. So thank you so much for joining us this week for Coffee Break Live. You can follow up with me at Live Lovely, and that has links to Dean Street Law, Flourish Co-working Space, and the Tea and Toast podcast.
And you can follow me at jordan.chadsey. Same thing. I have lots of links in my bio, and I'm excited to share more about some of these new opportunities next week. But you can find us. You can find our latest posts, and you can drop a coffee mug in them if you've joined us.
And then you can join us every week at 12 p.m. Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific time. We will see you next week, Coffee Break Crew.
Cheers.
Cheers.